Gurur Brahma, Gurur Vishnu, Gurur Devo Maheshwaraha, Gurureva Param Brahma, Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Chinmayam Vyapyat Sarvam Trilokyam Sacharacharam Tatpadam Darshitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Tvameva Mata Chapita Tvameva Tvameva Bandhuscha Sakha Tvameva Tvameva Vedya Pravinam Tvameva Tvameva Sarvam Mama Deva Deva Tvameva Sarvam Mama Deva Deva. Jai Guru. Om Sahana Bhavatu Sahana Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. So where are we in our text?
Chapter 11, number 133.
Chapter 11, 433?
133.
133, okay. Beans in my ears.
Avidya vasanapyapsi. Avidya vasanapyapsti. Yattastvad vasanotithe. Swapne murkha vade vaisha. Sukham dukkham cha vikshate. The impressions of ignorance still continue in the dreaming state. So in a dream, a wise man will experience sometimes joy and sometimes suffering without being affected by either.
So the idea here is to make it a little more clear. The discriminating intellect does not function in the same way in the dream state. For example, if we go to that story in Tripura Rahasya about the king who the Indravim spins the peacock feather, and then the horse comes, and then he goes into the place, and everything is in the passive voice in the Sanskrit, in the English too. So we don't have the same discriminative capacity. So even a wise person may have a dream, and in my dream, I may not be aware of the knowledge of my self-nature. Sometimes one does, but frequently not. So the avyakta, the avarana shakti of deep sleep is very powerful. But the point is, when you wake up, oh, that was the weirdest dream in the world. It seemed so real. Whew, thank God it's not. So this is the point. So don't be concerned if your knowledge is very clear in the waking state. In the dream state, it may not be as available. Remember, from the standpoint of the absolute, both bondage and liberation occur to the mind. From the standpoint of the absolute, there is no bondage, there is no liberation, there is no guru, there is no scripture. They're all unreal. Now, there's another implied thing there. Some of us are in what I call, well, we're third stage jnanis. If you go to texts like Yoga Vasishta and Tripura Rahasya, a third stage jnani is one who knows their self nature, but at times ignorance still on occasion overpowers the mind, and I forget. And that person suffers like any other fool during those states of identification. Then their knowledge returns. They go, oh my God, I was so deluded. Oh, thank God, it's over. You come to their understanding again. Point is, so what? Just another mind state. I want to tell you a true story. So we are now going back all the way to the mid-80s. And I had a marvelous student. Michael Strong was his name. He was a printer, tall, skinny guy. And he had AIDS. And believe me, nothing provides us with intense renunciation like a terminal diagnosis. This was before we had the antivirals. And he had Kaposi sarcoma, which was the gay cancer. And this attacked his brain. So there were times when he was just like hallucinating and just like he was losing his mind. Literally, the cancer was eating his brain. And I went over to visit him, and we were very direct and honest with each other. I mean, that's one of the things that's so cool about having friends who are yogis. And I said, Michael, what's it like to be losing your mind? And he was in bed and he was so serene. And he said, just another dream, Jim, just another dream. It was so humbling. And his mother and father were in the kitchen and they were weeping away because he was close to death at this point. And he said, they just don't understand, Jim. They just don't understand. He's a great yogi. Great yogi. Very helpful. So this is the point I think that Vidyaranya is making. You can take it in a more literal sense. We do not have the sense of discrimination in the dream state, but in a larger sense, when at times the mind will do what it does. Deep inside, the yogi is never touched. Any thoughts on this? Next verse.
Brahmananda Bhide Granthe Brahmananda Prakashakam Yogi Pratyaksha Madhyaye Prathamesmin Nudiritam. In this chapter, the first of the 5 dealing with the bliss of Brahman is described. Direct realization of the yogi revealing the bliss of Brahman.
Is this the next chapter?
This is the end of this chapter.
Oh, okay. So read it again.
In this chapter, the first of the 5 dealing with the bliss of Brahman is described. Direct realization of the yogi revealing the bliss of Brahman.
Yes. So we've had 3 different ways of tasting. We've had the first Brahmananda Rasa Swad, when the yogi has that trick of being able to let go of the mind, revel in the bliss of the self. It is the mind coming home that he's talking about. We call the self Ananda, bliss absolute. It is the fountainhead, the wellspring of bliss. When the mind ceases its vikshepa shakti, its agitation, it's like the waves coming into the ocean. Nothing but the ocean. But they've ceased their agitation. Then the 2 states of ignorance, vasana ananda and vishaya ananda. The first, the bliss of deep sleep, and the second, the bliss when we satisfy a desire with a worldly object. Now, for the person of wisdom, they know that the bliss of deep sleep is nothing but a kiss of the bliss of the self, and that the joy I experience in the world is only myself. The person in ignorance thinks it's out there. Next verse.
It's a new chapter.
Okay, this one's really cool.
Dvadashodhyaya Brahma Nande Atmanananda. Chapter 12, the bliss of the self.
Yes.
Nanvenam Vasanananda Brahmananda Adipitaram Veta Yogi Nijanandam Mudhasya Trastik Kagatihi. Question. A yogi can enjoy the natural bliss of the self, which is different from the bliss of mental quiescence and the bliss of deep sleep. But what will happen to the ignorant man?
I'm not quite sure what his question is, but let's see what goes on. I'm not sure what he means by the bliss of the quiescence of the mind as opposed to the bliss of the self. Let's see how Vidyaranya answers this.
Dharma vishadesha jayatam mriyatamapi puna punair dahalakshaikin no dakshinyatovada. Reply. The ignorant are born in innumerable bodies and they die again and again, all owing to their righteous or unrighteous deeds. What is the use of our sympathy for them?
Okay, so here, this is the simply the state of the world, the ignorant, the 99.9999% of all people. What is the physical body? For the ignorant, it is an instrument for the garnering of experience and the satisfaction of desires. And what's so interesting, some of these proclivities are in conflict with each other because we built the vasanas over lifetimes. But for the yogi, the garnering of experience and the satisfaction of desire is mumukshutva, the burning desire for liberation. Being a jinyasu, a seeker after wisdom, after freedom. So for them, the body is an instrument for the realization of the self. So that's where Vidyaranya wants to focus our attention. For those who want moksha, we're not too concerned about what happens to the ignorant. Let other people prescribe rituals or devotional activities for them, for the purification of their head and their heart over lifetimes. Extroverting into the world with adharmic activities and thoughts, and reaping the inevitable results of that. We don't want to worry about it. Going on.
Asti vonujjid shutvad dakshinyena prayojanam tarhi prahi samudha kim jigya surva paramukha. Doubt. Because of the desire of the teacher to help his ignorant pupils, he can do something for them. Reply. Then you must tell whether they are willing to learn the spiritual truth or are averse to it.
So, when the student is ready, then the teaching is efficacious. If the student is not ready, Lord Shiva himself cannot do anything. And if the student is ready, a rock can enlighten him. And Shankara says, if there's a fit student, it is the duty of the teacher to pour out the knowledge. Actually, the teacher can't help himself. It's his nature to do this. Next verse.
Upasti karma va bhruyat vimukhaya yathochitam manda pragyam tu jignasu atmanandena bodhayet. If they are still devoted to external objects, some suitable kind of worship or ritual can be prescribed for them. If, on the other hand, they, through spiritually dull desire to learn the truth, they can be instructed in the knowledge of the bliss of the self.
So the idea here is, depending on the spiritual unfoldment of the student, if their minds are extroverted and their minds are dull, the teacher can give them practices like mantras, like rituals. I'm thinking of a student who really wanted to get married. And so she went to an astrologer guru who gave her a mantra to attract a husband. No blame. Bunch of us went to hear Krishna Das this past year. Kirtan. It's a wonderful devotional practice. That's what it is. A wonderful devotional practice. But there are those who have an earnest desire for liberation and who may have a dull mind. But if their mumukshutva is intense, if they practice the 4 qualifications of a fit student, that mind, even though it's dull, can be made pure through abhyasa. Any thoughts on this? Next verse.
Bodhayamasa Maitreyanim Yajnavalkyo Nijapriyam Nava Are Pathurarthe Patikriya Itirayan. Yajnavalkya instructed this by pointing out to his beloved wife Maitri that a wife does not love her husband for his sake.
So he's shifting gears now. The basic point that he's going to work on in this chapter is that all of our desires, everything we love, is for the sake of the self. Oh, I love my wife, or I love my husband. Why? For the joy that it brings me. Oh, I love good music. Why? For the joy that it brings me. So we don't do it for the love of the person or the object. We do it for the love of the self. Why? When desire and object of desire become one for a moment, the Vikshepa Shakti is gone, and I get a taste of the mind absorbed in the self. Everything is done for the sake of the self. In the end, the world is not bad. In the Wednesday morning class, Vinyaranya was talking about, developing disgust and hatred for the physical body. You're missing something. In the end, phenomenal world is neutral. It's only my proclivities based on the force of the past. Desire and object of desire become one. It's myself. Oh. So this implies a practice. Sakshi Baba, take on the attitude of the witness. First, own my suffering. If I'm disturbed, no matter the cause, I'm the one with the attachment, the expectation, or the identification. No person, place, thing, or situation can make me feel anything. If I'm suffering, it's because I have a desire. It's that simple. And own your ananda. The joy that we experience in the world. Listen carefully. We never say that we don't experience joy in the world. We just understand what it is. It's a taste of the self. If I know that, then I can move through the world and the objects don't create attachment. Pass away, new set of experiences comes. Next verse.
पतिर्जाया पुत्रवित्ते पशु ब्राह्मण बाहुजाः लोका देवा वेदभूते सर्वं चात्मार्थप्रियम्. The husband, wife, or son, riches or animals, Brahmanahood or Kshatriyahood, the different worlds, the gods, the Vedas, the elements, and all other objects are dear to one for the sake of one's own self.
Yes, exactly what we're talking about. So if I find myself saying, oh, I really, really want, fill in the blank. Understand what I want is myself. And the more I want it, the further away it seems to be, the more painful it is. Come home. Come home. All of it is for the sake of the self. You know, you hear people now talking about the therapist saying, dear, you need to practice self-love. And people think, oh, that means take a bubble bath and get a massage. No. Oh, if only people would really practice self-love. Then they would be free. Next verse.
Patya vichya yada patnya tada pritim karoti sa shudanusthana rogadhyai tada nechati tatpatihi. A wife shows affection to her husband when she desires his company. The husband too reciprocates, but not when he is engaged in worship or afflicted with illness, hunger, and so forth.
Yes. So, the thing to understand about the world. Here is the circle of the objects going round and round and round. And here is my mind. I want this, that, and the other thing, this, that, and the other thing. And unfortunately, this is what happens a whole lot of the time. But every once in a while, away. Oh, yeah. Let's see if we can do that again. Let's see if we can do, oh, yeah, I want this, but she doesn't want that. Away. Now, many of you may have either heard about or read about Pavlov and the experiments he did with conditioning dogs. We call this the Pavlovian response. What did he do? He would ring the bell and feed the dog. Ring the bell and feed the dog. He would do this until the dog got conditioned. So when the dog heard the bell, it had the conditioned expectation that they were going to be fed and salivate, stuff like that. That's how you condition the dog. Then he would take the conditioned dog and he would ring the bell and not feed the dog. Ring the bell and not feed the dog. The dog could be condition. But the third experiment that Pavlov did is he would ring the bell and randomly feed the dog. The dog became used to disappointment, but always had hope and expectation of being fed. Pavlov found that when he had randomly conditioned the dog, it could not be deconditioned. That's what the Lord has done to us. Think. That's why the world is so powerful. The fact is, I don't always get what I want. But sometimes I do. And then I struggle to try to recreate it over and over again. The world's going around. My mind's going around. Most of the time it isn't working. But every once in a while, bang. Yeah. So the yogi understands this. And the good news is human beings who are yogis can be deconditioned. We're not like the dogs. We can see the whole process for what it is and let it go. Fascinating, fascinating study to understand as yogis and what moving through the world does for us and doesn't. That's why you hear me talk about things like 95 cents worth of work for a nickel's worth of pleasure. It's so economically inefficient from the standpoint of my work and labor in the world. For what? For essentially just a taste of myself. Ooh, I want a bigger car. How are you going to feel when you get the car? Happy. Ooh, I want a bigger house. How are you going to feel when you get the house? Happy. Ooh, I want to get a wife. How will I feel when I get the wife? Happy. Why don't you get rid? Not get rid. Don't pay attention to the medium and go directly for the happiness. How? It's the question that was asked to the Buddha. How can I be permanently free from suffering? All right, next verse.
Na patyurthe sa priti swartha eva karoti tam patikshchatmana evarthe na jayarthe kadachana. Her love is not for her husband's sake, but for her own. Similarly, the husband's love is for his own satisfaction and not for hers.
Yes. So even when I'm pleasuring another, it's because I get pleasure out of their pleasure. It's always for the sake, for the love of the self. So what we find is, what is the dharma of the human mind? The human mind is a pleasure-seeking, pain-avoiding mechanism. From the moment you get up in the morning to the moment your head hits the pillow at night, that's all we do. Even if you're altruistic, It's because of your highest notion of the good. And the only real spiritual question then is, where is the good? It's myself. How do I experience the bliss of the self? Through a medium or immediately. Doesn't matter. Next verse.
Anyonya preranetyevam swechayaiva pravartanam. Thus, even in the mutual love between husband and wife, the incentive is one's own desire for happiness.
Yes. He summed it up there. Any thoughts or questions about this?
So even altruistic desires are selfish desires.
Yes, yes. Even when I torture the body, oh, I'm going to fast for Shivaratri. Why? Because I think it will bring me good.
So even somebody who's I guess suffering is also selfish in that sense. When they are tormenting somebody else, they think that's going to bring them happiness.
Well, when I hurt someone else or harm someone else, why am I doing it? I think I will feel better when I see them suffer.
Right.
Because they've hurt me.
Mm-hmm.
It's always for the sake of the self. And the 12th chapter builds on what we discussed in the 11th chapter. I mean, Shankara is a poet. Chidananda Shivoham, Shivoham. My form is bliss consciousness. I am Shiva. I am auspiciousness itself. Next verse.
Shma Shrukantha kavedhena bale rudati tatpita chambatyeva nasa priti balarthe swartha eva sa. A child, when kissed by its father, may cry, being prickled by the latter's bristly beard. Still, its father goes on kissing the child. It is not for its sake, but for his own.
I think that's funny. I think most modern fathers today would stop kissing the child if he realized it was prickling the poor baby. Lick him instead. But the idea here is my expression of love is frequently for myself. Even the most altruistic, the agape of the Greeks, the selfless love, the caritas, the paramaprema. Oh, I love the Lord. God doesn't need your love. I need to love God because I want the feeling of love. Think. Next verse.
Niricham api ratnadi vitta yatne yena palayan pritim karoti sa swarte Vittarthatvam na shankitam. Wealth and gems have no likes or dislikes of their own, but their owner looks after them with love and care. It is for his own sake, none doubts it to be for theirs.
Yes. Or to put it in modern terms, I went to my bank today and I was absolutely shocked. The dollar bills were making love to one another. But I love my money. Or my jewelry. Or my tchotchkes around the house. I don't love them for force for their sake. I love them for the joy they give. Next verse.
Anichati bali varde vivaha yishate bala priti savanigarthaiva balivar datatha. A merchant forces his bullock, though unwilling to carry a load. He loves the bullock for his own sake. How can it be for the bullocks?
Yes. So the fellow who's put a load on top of his bullock, the bullock doesn't like carrying a heavy load, but I love my bullock because it's able to carry my load, so I can take it to market and make money. If you've got a job, do you go to work simply for the love of your company? Oh, I love Google. The only reason I go to the office is because I love Google. Paycheck. I may love what I do, and then that's still selfish. It's I do it because I love it. And the point again that he's getting at, the world is not bad. The world is void. It's completely neutral. Nothing is either good or bad, but thinking makes it so. Doesn't mean the yogi ceases to interact with the world. The world's not problematic. Equipment's going to act according to its prarabdha karma. What can restraint do? We just did that verse in the second chapter of Gita. Every being is impelled into action helplessly by the force of prakriti, nature. What can restraint do? But see what's really going on. Then the world no longer has the power to tyrannize us or torment us. That's the freedom. Any thoughts on this? Next verse.
Brahmanyam mesti pujyoham iti tushyati pujaya acetanaya jaterno santushti punsa evasa. A Brahmana, knowing that he deserves respect, is satisfied when he receives it. This satisfaction is not felt for his caste, an insentient abstraction, but for the man himself.
Yes. So a brahmana who likes to be honored finds joy. What about the cow? When you put the garland around the neck of the cow, how does the cow feel?
He eats it.
not the honor, for my sake. And it's not just brahmanas. He's talking about this because he's in the Sringeri Mutt and he's dealing with a lot of brahmins. But one of the basic human proclivities is the desire to feel important, the desire to be valued, the desire to have some significance. Frequently, not just in my own mind's eye, but in the sight and the opinions of others. You get exceeds expectations at work. How do you feel? Yes. And the opposite, we're giving you a PIP. It's all for the sake of self. Next verse.
Kshatriyoham tena rajyam karomityatra rajata na jater vaishya yadav yojana yeda miritam. A king feels exalted that he is a Kshatriya and hence is a ruler, but the feeling is not for the caste. The same applies to men of Vaishya and other castes too.
Yes. So whatever your station in life is. So you have a title. You're a district manager. That's just a concept. At best, it's a label, put on a plaque on your door of your office. But it's for the sake of the self. You go online, you look at your 401k. It's gone way up this past month. That's just an abstraction. It's numbers. It's for the sake of myself. Ooh, I made a lot of money this month. Just idea. Any thoughts on this concept? Next one.
Swargaloka Brahmalokau Stamemetyabhivanchatnam Lokayo Norpakaraya Swabhogayaiva Kevalam. The desire, may I attain the region of heaven or of Brahma, is not for the well-being of those regions, but only for one's own enjoyment.
Yes. Why do I want to go to heaven? I can be happy. Oh, I want to go see Auntie and Grandma in heaven. Why? I will be happy. Everything we do is for the sake of the self. Meaning the mind free from its fixation. Either mediated with an object or immediately. Next one.
Ishvishna Vadayo Devaha Pujyante papa nashtaye na tannishpapa devartham tattu swartham prayujyate. People worship Shiva, Vishnu, and other deities to destroy sins. It is not for the sake of the deities who are already free from sins, but for their own sake.
Yes. Like I say, when you warm the heart to love God, God doesn't need our love. I do it for my sake. We just had Diwali propitiating Lakshmi, the goddess of wealth. For her sake, she's already wealth itself. And when you, so be it worldly or be it religious, it's always for the sake of the self. There is no other happiness than the self. Next verse.
Rigadayo hyadhiyante durbrahmanyana vapyate na tat prasaktam vedeshu manushyeshu prasajjate. The Brahmanas study the Rig and other Vedas to avoid falling from their respectable Brahmanhood. This applies to men only and not to the Vedas.
Yes. So if I study the Vedas because that's the duty of my particular task, the Veda doesn't be happy because of it. Modern day example. In April, I pay my income tax, not for the sake of the IRS. Why do I do it? For myself. I don't want to get caught cheating. Always for the sake of the self. And maybe you do pay your taxes because you want to support the government. Or here's a better one. You make charitable contributions. Why do I do that? Well, I want that particular charity, be it the symphony or some NGO or some spiritual organization. Why do I do it? I want them to prosper. Why? Because I think it's of value, or I am grateful for what I've gotten from these organizations. It's still for the sake of the self. Next one.
Bhumyadi panchabhutani sthanathripakashoshanaihi hetubhi chavakashena vanchan yesham na hetavaha. People want the five elements, that is earth, fire, water, air, and akasha, because of their usefulness to them in giving shelter, quenching their thirst, cooking, drying, and space for movement, and not for the sake of the elements themselves.
Yes. So here he's broadening it out. We do everything in the world for the sake of the self. Or the way I like to say it, the human mind is a pleasure seeker, pain avoider mechanism. It is what the mind does. It is like phototropism in the plants that turn towards the light. That's what they do. And the only doubt is, where is the good? If I think it's drug, sex, and rock and roll, that's where my mind will go. That's where my activity will go. And what will I find? Well, it's not working out too well. Let me try something else. I'm going to become a workaholic. I'm going to put in 80 hours a day and make lots of money. That will make me happy. That didn't work out very well. I'm having a midlife crisis. I need a red sports car and a new lover. I'm giving up the world. I'm going to go to Bali and sit on the beach. And you get bored. It takes lifetimes for us to figure out, where is the good? What am I searching for? What am I looking for? What I'm looking for, I'm looking with. It takes a long time to figure that out. And even when I intellectually know it can take some time before reveling in the self is easy. I have many students come to class, they get all tuned up, they enjoy it, they learn stuff. How's your meditative practice? Oh, Jim, I'm ashamed to say it, but I can't seem to meditate. You know, my mind's just too noisy, too busy. I don't have time. I get up so early to go to work. I shouldn't have time to meditate. No blame. The mind is extroverted. You can't help it. But if they keep on keeping on, in time, the mind will turn within and become truly contemplative. That's the process. Next verse.
Swami Bhrityadikam Sarvam Swopakaraya Vanchati Tatat Kritopakarastu Tasya na Vidyate. People desire to have servants or masters for their own benefit and not for the benefit of servants of masters themselves.
Yes. So here, oh, I love my guru, not for the sake of the guru, my sake. I have a housekeeper who comes twice a month, not for the sake of the housekeeper, my sake.
So he's talking here about Vishaya Ananda, right? That's the self.
Well, the idea here is yes. The idea that he's getting at is to understand there's no inherent pleasure in the world. The world is not bad. It's just empty. In my ignorance, we talked about anyonya adhyasa, the mutual superimposition, the first superimposition. I superimpose upon myself the qualities of the not self. I think I'm the body, I think I'm the prana, I think I'm the mind, I think I'm the ego, etc. But the other superimposition is I superimpose my self-nature onto the phenomenal world. And the main point he's driving at here is I externalize, I superimpose my ananda. I think it's the people, places, things, and conditions. That's where the juice is. And that makes me run after them. when in reality, they're neutral. I just use the object or the person to temporarily induce the state of the mind freed from its extroversion. Is that clear?
Mhm.
And we hear this, we believe it, then I go out in the world and I get upset. Not getting what I want. It gets out there. Next one.
सर्व्यवहृतिष्वेवम् अनुसन्धातु मीदृशम् उदाहरण बाहुल्यं तेन स्वां वासयेन्मतिम्. There are plenty of such examples to enable one to study and come to the same conclusion on all occasions. By these, one should convince one's mind that for every man, the self is the only real object of love.
Yes. And Krishna says, people in every way do nothing. How does he say it? They only seek me in every way, in everything they do, just by the wrong method. They don't know what they're seeking is Krishna. And if I do not know that it's Krishna, the inevitable result will be attachment and then vasana as the result. So I wake up the next day and I am restless and discontent. That's what I call a spiritual hangover. It's the result of yesterday's ignorant indulgence in the world. That adhyasa, superimposing my own self-nature, my own bliss onto the objects. It's all that we do. And that's what hangs us up. And here, the meditation that he's giving us is own your ananda, watch your mind. You mean good food, good sex, the approval and attention of other people, making money, all do the same thing to my mind? Yes. It will vary in intensity and it will vary in duration, depending on how badly I wanted it and how completely it satisfied the desire. We're back to this business again. But in my ignorance, I'm deluded and confused by the various sensory experience. I'm focused out there rather than watching what it's doing to my mind. When you finally see it, it's incredibly profound. Any thoughts on this? All right, one more.
अथ केयं भवेत् प्रीति श्रूयते या निजात्मनि रागो त्वद्भादिविषये श्रद्धा यागादिकर्मणि भक्ति स्यात् गुरुदेवादात् अविच्छा त्वप्राप्यवस्तुनि तर्ह्यस्तु सात्विकी वृत्ति सुखमात्रानुवर्तनी प्राप्ते नष्टेपि सद्भावात् इच्छातो व्यातिरिच्यते. Doubt. What type of love is it that the scriptures say is felt towards the self? Is it the passionate attachment which is felt towards wife and other objects, the faith which is experienced in sacrifices and other rituals, the devotion which a man cherishes towards God and his teacher? Or is it the desire one feels for something one does not possess? Reply. The real love of the self is that which, in the absence of these emotions, manifests itself owing to the preponderance of sattvika quality in the intellect. This love of the self is different from desire, for it exists even when desire is present or destroyed.
So again, what he's saying is the mind may go through its preferential dance in the world. If the yogi, with knowledge of the self, is free fundamentally from craving, it's always there. Always there. And the jnani is never fooled by the various sense perceptions. The love of the beloved, husband or wife, the love of the faith of doing ritual, anything in the world, it's all the same. All just the self. But if I'm unconscious, I don't pay attention, and I begin to think the stuff of the world, the people, places, things, and conditions have inherent joy-giving or misery-producing qualities. And then it either sets up craving or it sets up aversion. And then I get tormented by it if I take it seriously. All right, we'll end here. What verse are we on? We have one more class next week, and that will finish us off for the year.
23 next week.
All right. Then we will return to this text on the 6th of January. So we have one more week, which is the 25th, and then we will be off for the whole month of December, and we will then come back on the 6th of January. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om. Sri Guru Pyo Namaha. Hari Om. Oh.